All right, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolutely fascinating life of David Beverly Sr. This is a guy who transitioned from the highest echelons of space science to a, well, profoundly unorthodox spiritual journey. The contrast here is literally something else. We're going to trace his path from a highly decorated 12-year run at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center all the way to his current life as a minister and author focused on faith, truth, and some pretty controversial topics. It's a story packed with extreme environments, high-level technology, award-winning music, and a radical personal transformation.
So you might be wondering, how do we even have such a detailed public record of his past? Well, David himself explained exactly why he felt compelled to post his impressive career credentials right on his own blog. He wrote, and I quote, "Because the community of people who spend many hours of effort to come to truth want to be able to know that they can trust their sources." See, in what he describes as an age of great deception, he knew his audience needed hard proof of his background. He was facing doubters, people scoffing at the idea that he ever worked at NASA. No way, right? So instead of trying to answer every single naysayer, he just laid out his entire extensive resume for the world to see to establish that trust. And let me tell you, what a resume it is.
Section 1. The unlikely NASA pioneer. Let's take a look at his 12 years at the NASA Goddard Space Flight Center.
Okay, so David was so deeply entrenched in the analytical, technical side of things that his boss and dear friend, Michael A. Combriade, who went by NASA Mike, used to say that David was the Spock to his Captain Kirk. He wasn't just some peripheral employee, he was the logical, problem-solving core of his department's major initiatives. To put this into perspective, just look at these numbers. One of his huge achievements was re-engineering the hardware and software for the GOES Variable Data Delivery System. Basically, that's the network beaming weather and environmental satellite data back to Earth. Using a totally novel method with Hughes networking systems, he slashed the cost of a single system from $50,000 all the way down to just $7,500. That's a massive drop. And it wasn't just to save NASA a few bucks. This was for an educational project called You Be the Scientist, which lets schools pull in raw satellite data in real time, literally with point-and-click ease. He basically opened the door for a whole new cottage industry in educational tech.
His IT credentials are truly undeniable. For starters, he conceived and led the creation of the Digital Media Database. Think of it as a super early knowledge management tool that let users search digitized video and audio using keywords based on the spoken word. That project actually won the 2002 Library of Congress FLICC Award for Federal Library Innovation. On top of that, he was a core member of the Cool Space team, which stands for Communications over Obscure Locations, Special Projects, Advanced Communications Equipment. He basically racked up outstanding performance awards almost every single year, from 1997 to 2003, and provided vital ground support for the EOS Aqua spacecraft, a major satellite mission studying the Earth's water cycle.
Moving on to Section 2. Expeditions to the extremes. Pushing the limits.
Now, David wasn't just sitting behind a comfy desk in Maryland. Not at all. He provided rugged field science support and was totally willing to endorse some of the harshest conditions on the planet just to make sure NASA's communication networks actually worked. He actually jokes today that he still busts out his heavy Russian Arctic gear whenever he gets a quarter-inch of snow down in South Carolina, which, his neighbors find hilarious. But let's walk through this timeline because the scope of his fieldwork is wild. Back in 1998, he was working with top scientists to test S-band TCP/IP uplinks over TDRS, NASA's main satellite communication network. They were pushing early internet protocols over military satellite bands. Fast forward to April 1999, he's flying in Russian jets out to a floating sheet of ice to engineer the very first webcast from the North Pole. Then, in the fall of 2002, he's deep in the Amazon rainforest in Bolivia, providing crucial IT support for a massive international expedition at the Iturralde crater. He was out there kludging together advanced tech in places like McMurdo Station in Antarctica, literally keeping scientists connected from the ends of the Earth.
Yet, even amidst all this high stakes, intense technical pressure, David kept things remarkably human and lighthearted. He made it a point to pack his little Martin backpack travel guitar on every single trip. He firmly believed that music was the ultimate icebreaker. In fact, during that Bolivian jungle expedition, he used the guitar to connect with the Arona villagers. He was playing music, handing out t-shirts, and even helping the local kids work on their tech certs. It really highlights a beautiful duality, doesn't it? The high-tech engineer who also has this deep appreciation for human connection.
Section 3. An award-winning musician, revealing his deeply creative side.
So as you can probably guess, his technical genius was entirely matched by a profound passion for music. But he had this wonderfully self-deprecating sense of humor about it.
He wasn't just a guy strumming chords around a campfire. He was a legitimate, working, professional musician running a career right alongside his IT work. For a while, David actually played country music for a living. The funny thing is, the country guys always told him he was way too rock and roll. But then the rock musicians insisted he was too country. He used to joke about trying to score a gig with Donnie and Marie Osmond just to figure out where he actually fit in. But despite that little musical identity crisis, he found real, undeniable success. I mean, he is an award-winning composer. He actually took home a prestigious Telly Award for a piece he composed, performed, and produced for NASA Explorer schools. Beyond NASA, he jammed in a rocking Christian praise band called Holy Smoke, sitting in at youth services around the Baltimore area. He looks back in those days really fondly, joking that he was still thin enough to pull off skinny jeans, actually had brown hair, and absolutely loved busting out his 70s-style Peter Frampton guitar phrasing during his solos. Okay, let's just hit pause for a second. We've established his immense, undeniable success, right? Innovation awards from the Library of Congress, crazy trips to the polls, musical accolades, a highly decorated 12-year run at NASA. But that brings us to the massive, million-dollar question. Why would someone just throw away a lifetime of prestigious awards? Seriously, what makes a person completely turn their back on all those earthly accolades? Well, the answer lies in a really dramatic shift in his personal philosophy. He essentially became, in his own words, completely disinterested in the accolades of men. In a move that's honestly kind of startling, he gathered up all of his NASA performance awards and literally threw them in the trash. He only kept one small gold statue, and those cash prizes that came with the awards, he just spent all of it. He states that he simply no longer cared about climbing the IT ladder of success. He even went as far as removing his NASA experience from his modern resumes because employers down in South Carolina just thought he was overqualified anyway. All those earthly achievements, they just completely ceased to matter to him.
Section 5. Seeking the ultimate truth. Embracing unconventional beliefs.
Today, operating under the moniker Jesusfreak Computer Geek, he is a minister, a husband, a father, an author, and a speaker. He's taken that highly eclectic background, that super rare mix of high-level systems engineering and out-of-the-box creative thinking, and using it to challenge mainstream narratives. Now, the subjects he dedicates his life to exploring today stand in stark, absolute contrast to his mainstream scientific past at NASA. He's leveraging what he calls his experiential expertise to encourage people to think differently. Believing we are currently living in a great deception, his research focuses on some profoundly unorthodox and highly controversial topics. Over on his blog, he dives into the implications of artificial intelligence and transhumanism. He is a vocal advocate for biblical cosmology, specifically flat Earth beliefs. He writes extensively on end times prophecy, holding a firm post-tribulation belief and warning that modern Christianity is just not prepared. He's also used his platform to expose what he terms the COVID plandemic, noting that his original YouTube channel, which had 10,000 subscribers, was actually deleted because of his views during that time.
But at the very core of the philosophy driving David Beverly Sr. today is one single piece of scripture. When he explains why he's so committed to telling the truth as he sees it, even when people mock his credentials or completely dismiss his current beliefs, he points straight to Psalm 1:5. The scripture describes a righteous person as one, he who swears to his own hurt and does not change. David is completely committed to pursuing his personal truth, regardless of the cost, the lost channels, or the skepticism from everyone else. So what you should really take away from this explainer is a pretty fascinating question. When a person has climbed to the very peak of the scientific mountain, what drives them to walk away from it all, just to stand by convictions that the rest of the world might completely reject? It really makes you wonder about the extraordinary lengths people will go to in their ultimate pursuit of the truth. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.